The emergency room doors burst open so hard they slammed against the walls with a deafening bang. Rainwater rushed across the white hospital tiles as two paramedics pushed in a bleeding homeless man strapped to a stretcher. Blood soaked through the thin blanket covering his chest while nurses froze behind the reception desk, waiting for authorization that never came. "Insurance?" the front clerk asked nervously. One of the paramedics looked horrified. "He's crashing." But before anyone else could move, a young nurse in dark navy scrubs stepped forward. Her name was Olivia Hayes. And in less than 5 seconds, she changed everything. "Trauma Bay 2. Now," she ordered. Nobody expected the rookie nurse to take control of the entire ER, especially not the hospital director standing nearby. And nobody knew the quiet woman they were about to humiliate had once saved soldiers on battlefields most people would never survive. Before we continue, if you believe real heroes are often ignored until it's too late, take a second to like, comment, and subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be remembered. Rain hammered against the massive windows of Mercy Ridge Medical Center while chaos spread through the emergency ward. Machines beeped. Doctors shouted. Stretchers rolled across polished floors under harsh fluorescent lights. Olivia moved quickly through the noise, tying her dark hair back while slipping on fresh gloves. She had only worked at Mercy Ridge for 4 months. Long enough to earn respect from patients. Not long enough to earn trust from administration. Some nurses admired how calm she stayed during emergencies. Others whispered that she ignored rules too often. Olivia never defended herself. She simply treated whoever needed help, even when the hospital cared more about paperwork than people. The homeless man on the stretcher looked barely conscious now. Gray beard soaked with blood. Breathing shallow. Pulse fading. A paramedic leaned toward Olivia urgently. "Possible internal bleeding," he warned. "BP's crashing." Olivia nodded once. "Get me fluids. Prep oxygen. Call surgery." The receptionist panicked. "Wait. We don't even know who he is yet." Olivia looked straight at her. "He's a patient," she replied coldly. "That's enough." Within seconds, she was cutting open the man's torn jacket, checking wounds with terrifying speed and precision. Not rushed. Precise. Controlled. Like someone who had done this hundreds of times before. A senior doctor nearby frowned. Something about the way she moved felt wrong for an ordinary civilian nurse. Too efficient. Too calm. Too practiced. Then the hospital director arrived. Richard Kane. Expensive suit. Silver watch. Perfect smile that disappeared the second he saw the homeless man in Trauma Bay 2. "What is this?" he snapped. Nobody answered immediately. Olivia kept working. "He needs surgery," she said without looking up. Kane's expression darkened. Was he admitted? No. Insurance. Unknown. The director's jaw tightened instantly. "You started treatment without authorization?" Olivia finally looked at him. He was dying. "That wasn't your call." The room went silent. Doctors avoided eye contact. Nurses pretended to check monitors while secretly listening. Kane stepped closer. "This hospital follows procedure," he hissed. "We are not a free clinic." Olivia's hands never stopped moving. He would have died in the parking lot. And now this hospital absorbs the liability. The homeless man groaned weakly on the stretcher. Blood pressure dropping again. Olivia raised her voice sharply. "Then, argue later. He needs or now." The command in her tone shocked everyone. Even Kane froze for half a second. Because that wasn't how frightened rookie nurses spoke. That was how battlefield medics spoke when seconds mattered. But the director's anger exploded anyway. "You don't tell me how to run this hospital." Then suddenly, crack. His hand struck her across the face. The sound echoed through the ER. A nurse gasped. One doctor actually stepped backward. Olivia's head turned slightly from the impact. But she didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't touch her cheek. She simply stared back at him with a calm expression that somehow felt colder than anger. "Get out," Kane spat. "You're finished." Security approached awkwardly. Nobody moved to stop them. Not because they agreed. Because they were afraid. Olivia slowly removed her hospital badge, placed it on the counter, then turned back toward the patient one final time. He needs abdominal imaging immediately, she told the trauma team quietly. Lower left quadrant. One surgeon frowned. How do you know? Olivia answered without hesitation. Because the bleeding pattern matches splenic rupture. Then she walked away. The homeless man watched her leave through half-open eyes. And for the first time since arriving, he smiled. You just made a mistake, he whispered weakly. Kane scoffed. She broke policy. The old man reached slowly into his coat pocket, pulled out an old phone, dialed one number. That's her, he said quietly into the receiver. I found the medic. Then he hung up. Outside, rain poured across the city streets while Olivia stepped beneath the hospital awning. Her cheeks still burned from the slap. But that wasn't what hurt most. What hurt was realizing some systems never change. Whether on battlefields or inside hospitals, people still argued over rules while others bled. She adjusted the strap on her worn duffel bag and started walking toward the street. Behind her, the sound of thunder shook the sky. Except it wasn't thunder. At first, nobody inside Mercy Ridge understood the noise growing louder overhead. Then the entire hospital building trembled. Nurses rushed toward the windows. Patients lifted their heads. Outside, a black military helicopter descended through the rain toward the parking lot. Rotor blades blasted water across parked cars as the aircraft touched down directly outside the emergency entrance. The side door slid open instantly. 3 armed Navy personnel jumped out. Then another man followed behind them. Tall, broad shoulders, dark tactical jacket soaked by rain. His expression carried the quiet authority of someone used to making life-or-death decisions. The automatic doors opened before anyone could react. The officer stepped into the hospital lobby. Rainwater dripped from his boots onto the white floor tiles. The entire ER went silent. His eyes scanned the room once. Cold. Precise. Then he spoke. Where's the nurse who treated my operative? The room froze. Even Kane looked confused now. Operative, he repeated. The officer ignored him. Instead, his gaze settled on the homeless man now sitting upright in the hospital bed. And suddenly, the old man saluted him casually. Several nurses gasped. Kane stared in disbelief. The homeless veteran smiled faintly. Took you long enough, Commander. The officer nodded once. Traffic. Nobody laughed except the veteran. Kane stepped forward aggressively. You can't storm into a private hospital. The commander cut him off without raising his voice. Did you fire the nurse? Silence. Kane folded his arms. She violated hospital protocol. The commander studied him for several seconds, then slowly asked, Did she save the patient? No one answered, because everyone knew the truth. Finally, one surgeon spoke quietly. Yes. The commander nodded once. Then your protocol is broken. The words hit the room like another slap. Kane tried to recover. She's just a nurse. The veteran chuckled softly from the hospital bed. No, he said calmly. She's the reason 5 men came home alive. Every head turned toward him. The commander reached into his jacket and removed a military tablet. He tapped the screen once, then looked directly at Kane. Former Chief Petty Officer Olivia Hayes. He read aloud. Combat medic attached to Naval Special Warfare Reconnaissance Division. The ER fell completely silent. One nurse covered her mouth. A doctor whispered, Oh my God. The commander continued. Decorated for emergency stabilization under hostile fire during an extraction mission overseas. Kane's confidence visibly cracked. The veteran leaned back against the bed. She held my artery closed for 43 minutes while bullets were hitting the vehicle around us, he said quietly. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The commander looked toward the hospital doors where Olivia had disappeared minutes earlier. She left the military after losing her unit during a failed operation, he said calmly. Then chose civilian medicine because she still wanted to save lives. His eyes returned to Kane. And you slapped her for doing exactly that. The room felt smaller suddenly, heavier, because the frightened rookie nurse they humiliated wasn't inexperienced at all. She had simply seen horrors nobody else there could imagine. Outside, the rain continued falling hard against the glass. The commander turned toward the entrance again. Where did she go? A young nurse pointed shakily toward the street. The commander immediately started walking. But before leaving, he stopped beside Kane, then quietly said something nobody in that hospital would ever forget. The people who saved the most lives rarely talk about it. Then he walked out into the storm. Across the street, Olivia stood beneath a flickering street lamp waiting for the crosswalk signal. Tired, cold, ready to disappear again. She heard footsteps behind her, turned slowly. The commander stopped a few feet away in the rain. For a moment neither spoke. Then he looked at her carefully and said, "Chief Hayes, permission to bring you home?" Olivia stared at him silently. Not because she didn't understand the question, because after years of feeling forgotten, she finally realized someone still remembered who she was. And back inside Mercy Ridge Hospital, an entire emergency room stood in silence, realizing the quiet nurse they threw away had once been one of the most trusted combat medics in the Navy. Sometimes the strongest people don't wear medals where the world can see them. Sometimes they wear ordinary scrubs and keep saving lives anyway.